Hello, welcome to the Teapot Reads. My name's Sam. I'm the Teapot. This is what I'm currently reading. This is To Paradise. To Paradise. What I'm currently reading, and I'm so happy to see you today. Welcome back. So I'm going to cut to some footage of me finding books on my shelves that I want to unhaul, but then I will cut back to me sitting here talking to you about why I'm choosing to unhaul each book. Last year's unhaul was a lot bigger. I didn't film it. Tank is here because he's confused. Last year's unhaul was a lot bigger. I didn't film it, but I was like, this year I should do that. I use this as an opportunity to sort of weed my bookshelves. I kind of view them as a little bit like a garden. I also try to remind myself, and this is like the big reason for getting rid of a lot of these, that there are so many books out there I want to read, and I have to make some sacrifices and choose to get rid of some books that I just know I'm not going to read, or reading them will be a waste of my time because they're just such a low priority. And, you know, these books, if someday I decide, actually, I should have kept that, that's a regret I will have to live with, but I don't think I will regret it with these. So, yes, we're going to cut to that footage of me finding some of the books, and then we'll be right back here. Alright, let's start with, like, down here, which is really the only thing I want to look at down here are the arcs. Because I have a lot of arcs that I haven't read, and ooh, I don't know. Maybe I will get rid of them. Obviously you can't resell arcs, so I'll just drop them in a little library. So I do have this Woven Kingdom, which I will be keeping because I want to read that. Actually, and Age of Ash as well, but I think appealing to me when I picked it up, because it is cute, it comes in like the sleeve. I read the first couple paragraphs. I was like, this is pretentious and not really my thing. So I don't know. I'll think about that. We'll put that to maybe. And this. I want to get to all these. These all sound like really good. But this one, picked it up and I think that was a mistake. Okay, so I have another copy of this, but I still really want to read it, and I don't have any other copies of this, so I'll be keeping this one for sure. Jasmine Throne, similar to She Who Became the Sun. I have another copy, but I want to keep the arc. And we have The World Gives Way. No, let's get rid of that one. Ooh. The Bridgerton books. I'm not unhauling them today, but they are, or should I just get rid of them? I had been like working on a video vlog of reading them all, and then I had been also planning on doing like an in-depth review of them all. I'll keep them, but they're on thin ice. If I don't get to those videos this year, they're gone. Goodbye. Hi, Tanky. Okay. So down here we have, these are like books that I just don't want to look at that like I don't feel like looking at frequently. Either old favorites that I never pull off or think about or don't think about that often but don't want to get rid of. Or they're books that are near the chopping block from last year's haul. So let's see what we've got here that's at risk. This one, I already know for sure. I'll talk about this in a moment. I picked this up because it's like YA horror, and I really wanted to try to spread that way. It was totally last minute decision. I'll keep it for now, but it's like a maybe for next year, I think, already. I think we're going to hold on to it. It's still like a strong maybe. It's always so close to the calling. I have to really consider, will I read a book? Like, do I have time to read this book? But I think, I don't know, there's just still something interesting about this book. I'm hesitant to get rid of it. I know the author's not necessarily a good person. Incendiary. I never read Zoraida Cordova. I have a couple of her books. They're all on my TBR. This was a fairy lead, I think. This is almost going to stay on, like, Death's Watch, basically. Well, I'm not going to get rid of it this year, but honestly, if I don't get to it this year, I probably will get rid of it next year. It's just been sitting for a while. I'm not doing like a full reshelving or reorganization, so when I do, there probably will be some that I find I'm like, yeah, I'll get rid of that, but this is just like rough. Oh my god, this one was on Death's Watch last year, I think, but I'm going to give it one more year for Master of One. Am I ever going to read this book? I'm not. I'm never going to read Shielded. Even though it's a special edition. Goodbye. And similarly, Forest of Souls. I don't think I'm going to read it ever. I didn't have interest in it. I should have skipped the month of the box. The Light of the Midnight Stars. I feel like I've put this in a lot of videos. I didn't like it. These are actually already in a pile of to be gotten rid of. And I forgot. Don't let me forget manga. I have to go through that as well. Basically, everything, not this stack, everything left in this stack here is going. So, quite a bit. I've just made that decision. I wasn't going to get rid of this much. I wasn't going to be so brutal, but I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to read it. I don't want to invest in these series anymore, or if I want to invest in them, I want to do so digitally. So, adding this to the pile. I'm going to put this away, okay, baby? Yeah, I know, it's very confusing. I'm very confusing, I know. Doesn't make sense to Tanky. Ooh, you caught that! Good boy! Okay. Go back to, the other footage. Okay, welcome back. So, this stack is pretty big. Most of it is manga, which I didn't realize when I was thinking about this video, but makes sense in retrospect, because I'm A, trying to read more manga, and B, I have a lot of manga that I'm just not going to continue with, so we'll talk about why each series I chose to get rid of it, as well as why I chose to get rid of each book, and that's what we're going to do now. First of all, and this wasn't in the little extra footage, but The Finnish Way, this is a self-help book. I actually talked about it in my nonfiction collection video that I posted recently. I just wasn't vibing with it. I was like, you know what? I thought this was going to be some way, and it would give me interesting ideas and ways to just sort of improve my life, and nothing that really vibed with me. It definitely made me very much want to live like the Finnish, like in a society like that, but they're just the job I have and the way I live just doesn't vibe with this, and I don't have the power to control a lot of the things that would help me to vibe this way, so I'm just saying goodbye to The Finnish Way. It's really cute. It's really good. It's not a bad book. I don't think it's a bad book. I don't think, well, we'll talk about it. There are a couple that I think are bad books, but mostly I don't think any of these are bad books. So then we have The World Gives Way. I have an arc of this. I requested it, so I did think it was interesting at one point, but it's a post-apocalyptic story, and I just don't have the space for those. Reading To Paradise is reminding me that I just don't have the space for those in my soul. They're not for me. That being said, I just saw the new covers for the Ugly series, which I loved as a child, so I may buy those, even though they're post-apocalyptic. But nothing new, I don't think. I think this is a good buy. And honestly, I forget that I have it all the time, so not really on my radar. Another arc is The Grim Rose Girls by Laura Pohl. I picked this up because it sounded interesting. Recently heard that it had some, I think, lesbophobia in it, and some, like, what is it called? Microaggressions, like microaggressive writing. I don't know if that's true. I haven't read it. It was just something I saw someone talk about in a review, and I was like, okay, I'm kind of feeling wonky about it. And then I was also just like, you know what? It sounded interesting, but I'm probably not gonna read it. It's not gonna happen. It's about like, it's sort of retelling of like classic fairy tales, but they all go to like a school together. Like, I think the school aspect is what made me be like, oh, that sounds interesting, but it's not happening. Also, I should mention, these are arcs. Most of these books I'm just going to sell to half-price books. The arcs I'm just going to donate to a little free library or give to someone. You can't sell arcs. And then we have another arc, Anthem by Noah Hawley. I like Noah Hawley's TV shows. Flipping through this book made me go, I don't like your novel. So it also just feels like pretentious and like speaking down on like fantasy and sci-fi and speculative novels in a way. I don't know how to describe it past that, but I was just like flipping through and I was like, oh, this is a book that people who think they're better than fantasy read to like repeat that to themselves. I don't know. Not for me. Might be a good book. I'm not gonna read it. Oh, this is a DNF. So this is Beasts of Prey by Ayanna Gray. This came with a fairy loot or an Analuma crate or something. It is signed. I don't know if it's actually signed or digitally signed. Doesn't matter. It is signed. This is recent. I haven't actually talked about this at all. I was listening to the audiobook. I got about 2 hours in, which was what I was like, you know, at 2 hours, that's enough for me to judge whether I want to continue this book or not. This was already a book I really wasn't interested in. It came in a bookish box, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll give it a try. It just wasn't for me. So I DNF'd it early because I was like, I just don't have time to sit and listen to this audiobook. The narrator was really good. I really enjoyed her voice, and his voice was good because there was two. Actually, I think there are three narrators. The prologue was really interesting, but the chapters past the prologue just weren't grabbing me in the same way. I do think part of it is just I've grown out of stories like this. Does that sound horrible and pretentious of me? But there are just some stories that I would have loved this a couple years ago. This very much was the niche that I was reading in, and if I had read this a couple years ago, I probably really would have enjoyed it. I'm not reading those kinds of books as often anymore, and you have to do a lot more to impress me. It is pretty typical YA fantasy. There's like this night zoo, and Kofi is indentured there with her mother. And then there is Ekon, he's like hearing voices of his father from the forest where this magical creature, the Shitani, lives. And I think that it's the Shitani that brings the two together. I didn't get far enough to know for sure. I just wasn't connecting with the characters. And when I say 2 hours, by the way, I do listen to the audiobook sped up. So it was like 1.8 times or something. Like it wasn't like just 2 hours. It was quite a bit. I just wasn't vibing. With the characters. The plot was like the Night Zoo was interesting, and I liked the creatures a lot. I liked the descriptions of this world a lot, and I did like the writing voice. I wasn't connecting with it, and I really think came at me at the wrong point. But I'm happy to pass it on and sell it back to Half Price Books, because hopefully someone who is ready for this book will get it. I do think it's also been optioned for a television show or a movie for Netflix or something like that. So if that does see the light of day, I would love to watch it. I would like to see how this is adapted, because I think it'll be very beautiful, just image-wise, because the descriptions in here, loved. Especially like the creatures, loved. Alright, time for manga. Why did I get rid of my manga? So, Pandora Hearts. I read the first 2 volumes years ago. I'm never going to continue the series. I just have to say goodbye. Most of it's out of print now anyways, I think. If I really, really want to read it, I'm sure I could find digital copies. Or go to the library, honestly. In the same vein, Case Study of Vanitas by Jun Michizuki. No. What I've seen of the fandom around this has been really queerbaity. I don't have space for that anymore. Voltron used all my queerbaiting energy. It's pretty much a no past that, so bye. The art is beautiful. Then we have, this series is popular again, which is funny. My friend turned me onto this years ago. This is a horror manga. I'm getting rid of volumes 1 through 3. I enjoyed it, but when I compare it to the manga I'm reading now, like Sweat and Soap, is levels above this. So just moving past it, cutting my losses, selling it. This is one I picked up because the cover, just like, I adored the cover. This is Demon Prince of Emoji House Volume 1. I'm never going to continue the series. I don't even remember what it's about. There are a lot of pretty boys. I do remember that, but never going to continue. Then I have, so this series I was reading digitally and then picked up some physical volumes of just to have, but I'm not going to read it physically. I will probably just continue to read it digitally. I do have to get caught up. I'm quite a bit behind now, but that is My Hero Academia. I actually bought these at Half Price Books, so this is volumes 3, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm just gonna give them back. There's someone else out there who loves this series more than me and who's probably desperately looking for certain editions, so I'll sell these back. I don't need them. I was enjoying reading them digitally. That was just like how I was comfortable reading them anyway, so goodbye. Oh, this made it onto my worst books. This is I Cannot Reach You, Volume 1. I really, really disliked this. This was a no-go. This is a goodbye. This is a regrets were had, and I'm over it. Goodbye. We have another arc. So this is an arc for The Wolf by Hannah Witten. I am just getting rid of it because I have a physical copy, and I don't need an arc. I really just don't need an arc of this one. I kept some arcs of books that I have physical copies of, but I feel like those are like collectible. Like, I don't need the arc for The Wolf. I just don't. Maybe we'll read it and be like, that was the best book I ever read. Why did I get rid of the arc? But I don't think so. Goodbye. And I actually had 2 arcs, just on accident. So I gave one to my mother, and she really enjoyed it. So she's got an arc. This book, I hated it. Okay. Oh, you can still see my bookmark. Let's take that out. The Maidens by Alex Micheletti. I DNF'd this. I have a video talking about why I DNF'd it. It was so bad. It was unbelievable. Like, I just couldn't believe anything was happening, and I read fantasy, so I know all about suspension of disbelief. Suspension of disbelief? No. This book was not it. This book was shit. I found out what the plot twist was. Also shit. Goodbye, The Maidens. Maybe I'll get a couple dollars back for you. This one was a little sadder. I have to take my bookmark out of this as well. Oh, it's just a book depository bookmark. I'll leave it in as a little treat. This was just a little bit of a sad DNF. This is Children of Blood and Bone. I do, again, in that video, talk quite a bit about why I'm DNFing it. It just wasn't for me, and a large part of that was the pacing. I wish I could have enjoyed it more, because I really loved the first, like, third of this book. I loved it. I thought it was so good, and then the second third just fell apart for me, and I didn't have the strength to continue. Is the short version. I really hope they turn it into a film. I want to see it. I want to experience the story. I couldn't do the book. It wasn't for me. Sorry. Final arc on here is The Light of the Midnight Stars. I read this. I've talked about it quite a bit, and I've actually recommended it. But I disliked it in general, and I'm never going to return to it. And in fact, I don't really think about it that often, so I'm just saying goodbye to The Light of the Midnight Stars. It's time to walk away from this book. I feel like I have been on a bit of a journey with it, though, so it is a little sad. This is, I think, of them all, the saddest, because I put a lot of energy into wanting to like this, and I've talked it up. I've hand sold it at work. It wasn't for me. It's time to say goodbye. I'm never gonna reread it. Bye, book. All right, these last final 2. These are just cases of I am not going to read these books. I didn't really have interest in them before they showed up. They were both book box releases. I think they're both very loot. And I'm just not interested in them. I'm not interested in them, and I'm sorry. I hope that by selling them to Half Price Books, someone who is interested in them will pick them up and will love them. I really hope so. But that person's not me. So first of all, we have Forest of Souls by Laurie M. Lee. I do love the cover. It's, again, just kind of feels like very typical YA, and it wasn't doing enough to interest me outside of that. And then we have Shielded by Kaylin Flanders. It does have stained edges, so I hope that pleases whoever picks this up. Again, just not interested. Not gonna read it. Doesn't pull me in at all. I wish, but no, they're both no's. So that's it. That's what I'm unhauling this year. That's what I'm weeding out of my beautiful bookcases. I think next year will probably be a lot more brutal. I have a feeling. This year, I'm really going to focus on trying to read a lot of the books on my shelves, especially books that are kind of like in like Death Watch, basically. I'm either going to read them or I'm going to listen to them on audiobook because I want to get through them and I want to hopefully enjoy them and people say, yes, I read that, I liked that book. But if I'm not going to read it and it's not something I bought for like collectible reasons, I'm not going to keep it on my shelf. So there are quite a few that are like that going into the new year. A lot of them are book box editions. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. One of the reasons I didn't get rid of a lot of them is because I'm always like, but what if this book is amazing? Like, what is it? What if this is the diamond in the rough story? And I hesitate to get rid of anything. And I'm like, this could be a book I love. So that's why a lot of them have lasted as long as they have. I don't feel that way about any of these. That tells you anything about these stories as well. But thank you for being here with me. If you liked this content and you want to see more content like this, definitely consider subscribing. If you are already subscribed, thank you so much. It means the entire world to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you're somewhere cold, I hope you're staying warm. If you're somewhere warm, I hope you're staying comfortable. And most of all, I hope you're reading a great book. I will see you guys next time. Bye!